Are you ready for part two of the horror villain tier list? I am too. Let's go.
Let's get down to brass tacks.
Guys, here we are, ready to finish our horror villain tier list. We have so many that we've covered, and we've got a lot more to do. I think we totaled it up to about 50 villains, so this is going to be very interesting. Let's take a look at the list and what we have already. Okay, here's the list, guys. We've got a lot of villains in the cream level, the top level. We've got Carrie, Dracula, the Xenomorph, Freddy, Hannibal, Ghostface. We've got Jack Torrance, and we've got Jason from Friday the 13th. Looking pretty good. In the second level, we have Art, Nosferatu, Captain Spaulding. We've got Damien from The Omen. We've got Kane from Poltergeist 2. We've got the Wolfman, and we've got Chucky in the second category. In the third category, we've got Abigail, we've got Megan, we've got the Urban Legend Killer, we've got the Cupid Killer from Valentine, we've got Samara from The Ring, we've got Sam from Trick or Treat, and we've got Harry Warden from My Bloody Valentine. And in the fourth level, the Game Over level, we've got, and this is the second to the bottom, we've got the Strangers, we've got the Red-Faced Demon, and we've got Lily from Late Night with the Devil. So far, we have not had any villains that goes into the bottom level, which is pretty good. So we'll see how far we get with that today. First person to work on next here is Ben Willis from I Know What You Did Last Summer. The first film, I actually enjoy the first film more than some people that I know, and that's fine. Obviously, this film came off of the heels of Scream, and like a couple of other films tried to, and I think they did some great stuff. I think there were some fun things. There were a couple of good kills. I think the chase scene in I Know What You Did Last Summer was legendary. One of the best chase scenes in horror. It was really, really well done. And poor Helen, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. I mean, I it was a great chase scene. It really was. But Ben himself, yeah, kind of goes back and forth. I was never really big on him as the killer. I never was really concerned about him. Maybe it's because the movie didn't showcase him in a better way. But I'm going to put Ben in Game Over. We're going in Game Over right there. Next up, we've got Pennywise, played by Bill Skarsgård. And, we're just going to look at Pennywise in general. So that includes Tim Curry. I'm a bigger fan of Tim Curry, his version of Pennywise, although I think Bill did a great job. The CGI kind of, it was an advantage, but it was also a disadvantage for Bill in his version of Pennywise. I think what Tim was able to do without CGI was amazing. In other words, he had to work harder, and it is what it is. But Pennywise as a character, when I was a kid, was pretty scary. That being said, I don't have a fear of clowns, so Pennywise is going to go in Ooh Baby. He's going in Ooh Baby, and he can be in that level with Art the Clown. So there you go. All right, next up, we've got The Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. First film, really good. Second film, pretty underrated. I had fun with the second film. We don't talk about the others. This is a character that absolutely crapped the bed. I mean, the mythology that they had to work with was great. I mean, you could have gone in so many different directions with The Creeper, and they just crapped the bed on the sequels. They just kind of just jumped off the cliff. And I think that that's too bad. But as a villain, I think the Creeper is very effective. I mean, he's damn near impossible to kill, right? But because we've had those other iterations that weren't too good when you talk about the third and fourth film, I think we go with Ooh Baby. I think we go with Ooh Baby. And I think that's pretty fair for the Creeper. I do. Okay. Next up, we've got Jigsaw. We've got Billy the Puppet or John Kramer. We're going to consider this John Kramer from the Saw franchise. And to me, I think that the Saw franchise even though it had so much success when it was at its peak, and it had a lot of great success with Saw X, I'm so distraught that Saw 11 is not coming out this year. It hurts. It really does because I wanted to see what they were going to do. That being said, I think that the Saw franchise, and we're talking, you're talking about the 2000s. I think Jigsaw himself is one of the last really great horror icons before we got to like an Art the Clown, right? But severely underrated, especially in conversations online. I don't see a lot. I don't see enough love for the Saw franchise, and it's crazy because we almost were going to get the 11th film in the franchise. And I think most of the films, I enjoy them all. Some are better than others for sure, but I think most of the films are actually really solid. So, that being said, I'm putting John Kramer in the cream. He's got to go to the cream, no doubt. No doubt at all for me. I'm a big fan of the franchise. I think Tobin Bell is amazing in the role, and I just hope we get a Saw 11. I really do. Next up, we have Leatherface, TCM, a franchise that just keeps on going. They just keep on going. And Leatherface as a character is iconic. Obviously, Gunnar Hansen played the first version of Leatherface, and then so many others over the years. Um, I think most of the films, is pretty divisive with fans. They have their favorites. Some like the zaniness of TCM2. Some people hate it. Some people enjoy the remake. Some people hate it. Some people think that the original is legendary. Some people hate it. It's like a lot of people hated the Netflix film. So this franchise has a lot of conversation, has a lot of conversation, but I think that the character is one of the OGs, and definitely when done right, which usually happens when done right, is a very scary villain, and I think he's very high on the list. So we're going with the cream. We're going with the cream. Next, we have The Fly. The Fly, multiple films, the originals, and also the Jeff Goldblum film, and even The Fly 2. I think The Fly, just as a villain, is again one of those villains. It's like the tragic villain, not the experiment went wrong, right? And now he's doing what he does. The 86 film is amazing, and I absolutely love that film so much. I've tried to talk about it whenever I can because I just don't think it gets the appreciation that it truly deserves. It's a masterful film by David Cronenberg, and I think Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis were great in it. It's such an emotional type of film. But as a villain, when we look at The Fly as a villain, even though he could do a lot of different things and some of it's really gross, I think as a villain, I'd probably go with Ooh Baby. I'd probably go with Ooh Baby. Okay, next up, we've got The Monster, Frankenstein's monster. One of the OGs, the Universal monsters. I think that this character, I wish and I hope we have a few adaptations that are coming up, and I hope that they are good. We haven't had a really good Frankenstein film in a long time, and I hope that what we have coming down the pipe is going to be good. Personally speaking, this was usually my second go-to when I would think about Universal monster movies, and as a kid, he absolutely scared me. So, just being honest, I think Frankenstein's monster has to go to the top. He's one of the OGs, has to go to the cream. Okay, there we go. Next up, we've got Pazuzu. Pazuzu from The Exorcist, which of course, this is a difficult one because if you're looking at the original film, I think the original film is great. Exorcist 2 and the sequels, obviously roller coaster. Some people love them. A lot of people hate the second one and the fourth one. Exorcist 3 is great though.
Here. We're fine. It is not in the file. It is not. You son of a bitch!
Exorcist 3 is great. George C. Scott was amazing in it. Brad Dourif was great in it, and so forth. So with Pazuzu, it's really tough to score. I do think that you can make the argument that Pazuzu, it would have been cool. Maybe the original is kind of its own thing in my opinion, but maybe with the second and third, fourth film and so forth, maybe Pazuzu could have been a stronger presence. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that could have been a thing. With that being said, I think with Pazuzu, we got to go to needs a touch up. We're gonna go with needs a touch up. Norman Bates. Norman Bates from Psycho. To me, maybe the most underappreciated horror villain, at least in the last 20 years, I would say. And that's because as Psycho gets older, you have less and less people who were there for that moment. And even when I was growing up, Norman Bates, his name held so much weight. Psycho 2 was in the 80s, so Norman Bates was still very popular in the 80s. Now, granted, you had shows like Bates Motel, which was really well done, and Freddie Highmore was great in it. But I think Norman Bates deserves to be in the cream. I just do. It's just He's just such a well done character. The performance was so amazing by Anthony Perkins. So he's got to go to the top. Next, we've got Leprechaun. Now, first film, it was pretty good. It was okay, I should say, for the time and what they were attempting. The mythology was kind of interesting. You had some good moments or whatever. But I have never been a fan of this franchise. I just haven't. And I love Warwick Davis. I do. I truly do. And he's great in the role and he's great doing what they've asked him to do. But I've never been a fan of this character. I've never really been big into the movies. Maybe I'll have to revisit them, have a redemption watch. Maybe you guys can do that with me. And I know there are fans of Leprechaun because he's still around. They're talking about a new Leprechaun film and so forth. So, but I'm gonna be honest, guys, this is my list. He's got to go and sucks on so many levels. He's going there. It's true. He's got to go there. Oh man. It is what it is. Okay, next up we have Esther from Orphan. Orphan and Orphan 2, First Kill, which I thought was totally underrated. Really good sequel. Surprisingly, I hope they do a third one. I know that there was rumblings of that. I think that this character is terrifying in a weird way because just to see the lengths that she would go to, she's totally psychotic. Usually with a lot of these villains, the backstory has different things going on, trauma or their childhood or this that. This is just an evil person who is masquerading as a child, and so it can be very scary. I love both of these two films, and I think the character herself is really good. I don't have big issues. But that being said, as a villain, also taking into account, how I perceive the villain if the villain was in the real world, and also the characters in the films, the choices that they make, and you have to have movie logic to make a lot of things work. That being said, I think Esther Goes On needs a touch up maybe with another film, a third film where it's really well done, and as a character she does some really cool stuff, some more cool kills. Maybe she can move up to Ooh Baby. It's close. I was almost thinking Ooh Baby, but we're going to go with the third level. Needs a touch up. Next up is The Thanksgiving Killer, John Carver. Really good movie. Can't wait to see the sequel. Some really good kills, bringing it back to like that old 80s feeling. Eli Roth did a great job with that. I think that with Carver, because it's only one film, I think I'm going to go with Needs a Touch Up. He was really good. I think if we can get a second film where it's as good as the first or close to it, maybe 85% of the first film, I think he could go to Ooh Baby as well. It was close, but I'm trying to be as fair with these as I can. Next up, we got Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, played by Christian Bale. They're doing a new film. It's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out. I don't know how it will, but Patrick Bateman is a really interesting character. It's psycho as hell, but also just some of the things that are so funny. I'll never show him my business card though. I thought he was well done. Of course, when you look at the context of the film, and I think about him, in the real world, there's some scary aspects, but I'm gonna go with needs a touch up. I don't think I want to put Patrick Bateman at that same ooh baby level as Art the Clown or Captain Spaulding or Chucky or Pennywise. Definitely when I look at it like that, I think he has to be and needs a touch up. Next, we have Pearl. Pearl, played by Mia Goth. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. That movie is on her shoulders. The weight of that movie is on her shoulders. And I think she hit a home run. Like, holy crap, she's got a lot of issues. And I think that some of it is pretty damn scary. I I think if Pearl had another movie, and kind of get more into the character, I think I could get a higher rating. Obviously, in X, she was an older woman, did some crazy shit. But again, I don't know. I think I'm going to go with needs a touch up for Pearl. I can't put Pearl in that same level as Pennywise or Chucky. Or the Creeper. So I'm going to go with needs a touch up. Pinhead. Pinhead is next. Another villain that irritates the shit out of me because they had opportunities to do some cool stuff with his mythology. And once we got to Hellraiser 3, that's when it all kind of fell apart. My thoughts on Hellraiser 4, Pinhead in space, have been well documented. And even when we did a watch party for it, holy crap, man. The new one was actually pretty good. I actually thought that was decent, and I was impressed. But as a character, I don't know, man. I think, and he's legendary. Don't get me wrong, Doug Bradley. He's a legendary character and all, but I think that they just never really, they never really fulfilled the promise of the possibilities of Pinhead. The first two films, yeah, they were really good. The first film is legendary. The second film might even be better. I think it's an underappreciated sequel. When I think of the whole picture of Hellraiser and how many of those films were direct to video, and they were just doing crappy shit with him. They really were. All that being said, though, I think Pinhead, has to go to Ooh Baby. Has to go to Ooh Baby. Okay, next up, we got Rose the Hat from Doctor Sleep. Criminally underrated. So underrated, it's not funny. Unbelievably. Rebecca Ferguson was great in the role. I think the film was great. It had to balance so many things when you talk about the Kubrick film and you talk about the book and just the fans of the Stephen King book and the fans of Kubrick's film. And how do you balance all that? How you merge all that? And Mike Flanagan was able to do it. Rebecca Ferguson was terrifying in so many scenes. She was slick. She was charismatic. I mean, it was amazing. But she's definitely underrated, just like the film. That being said, I think she's fantastic. I'm going to go with Ooh Baby. Okay, next up, we've got Candyman. Tony Todd, rest in peace to Tony Todd. Such an iconic role. And unfortunately, and the first film is legendary, so let's just throw that out there. The 92 film is legendary. It's great. What he was able to do in that film with Virginia Madsen was fantastic. The sequel, and then the third film was, oh gosh, man. Just what were they thinking, man? They had some great stuff. I mean, maybe Candyman should have just been one film, a one and done, and he just would have always been iconic like that. The new film being this spiritual sequel or what have you, had some interesting things. Originally, I wasn't a big fan of it, but in my revisit of Candyman 2021 that we did as a stream recently, I see a lot of the really good things in that film, and I've come to appreciate it a lot more. But of course, Tony Todd isn't in that one. It's more of the hive mentality of different Candyman. So just looking at the Tony Todd Candyman, I think he's legendary and he has to go to the cream. He just has to. Next up, we've got the Tall Man from Phantasm, played by Angus Scrimm. 5 movies over multiple decades. Probably another of one of the most underappreciated, underrated horror villains ever. The Tall Man can exist in multiple dimensions, countless amount of copies. He's got the henchman, he's got the super strength, he's all these different things. It's amazing what what he has as far as abilities. It's so crazy, the supernatural abilities. And I think he was very scary. The original film especially is still one of the most unique films in horror, in my opinion. So if you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. The Tall Man has to go to the cream. He just has to. There's no doubt. No doubt at all. Next up, the Blair Witch. The Blair Witch, first of all, you do not see the Blair Witch, which I didn't have the biggest problem with because your mind plays tricks on you, and that's great. But look, man, let's just be real. And this isn't about the movie because I did enjoy the movie and it had a special place in horror. But the Blair Witch is going on sucks on so many levels. It just has to happen. It just has to. Just being honest. Okay. Next we have Annie Wilkes. Annie Wilkes from Misery. And Kathy Bates was great in this role. I think that she was terrifying, just so charismatic. She was magnetic, and I love the film so much. As a villain, now obviously, if you're abducted and you're injured, like Paul was in the film, you're in trouble. But I think we gotta at least give Annie Wilkes her flowers. She has to be at least an Ooh Baby. We're gonna go to Ooh Baby. Next, we have the Thing. The Thing. The Thing can be anyone at any time. This creature, this films, whether it's the original or the John Carpenter film or even the prequel. I mean, when you talk about tension and paranoia, it's like at the top of the food chain, man. It's amazing. Some of the effects, especially in the Carpenter film by Rob Bottin, fantastic stuff. The Thing has to go into the cream. Has to. Okay, we're almost there. Next, the Smile Demon from Smile and Smile 2. Both films I really enjoyed. The first film was very surprising. And so I think that the Smile Demon has to go kind of high here. It's not legendary yet because we only have 2 films. I'm curious to see what the third film is going to do, but I think we got to go to Ooh Baby. I was thinking about needs a touch up. We're going to go Ooh Baby on the Smile Demon. Next, we've got Valak from The Conjuring and, of course, The Nun. This is a tough one because I think The Nun had issues. I didn't absolutely hate it. I think there were some good things in it. The Nun 2 was better, but they still didn't lean into Valak enough for me. And obviously in The Conjuring 2, that's when you first meet the character. But I think it's just such an up and down journey with the character and kind of the what could have been, you know what I'm saying? So I think we got to go with needs a touch up. Okay, last but not least, and I know we've got another Leatherface there. We won't be doing that. But last but not least, we've got Michael Myers. You guys know where he's going. He's got to go. He's got to go to the cream, no doubt. 50 years almost, man. It's crazy. This franchise, so many great films. The Gordon Green trilogy, which some people love, a lot of people have issues with, especially with Halloween Ends. All of that notwithstanding, I think Michael Myers as a character is still one of the most interesting horror villains. The mythology and everything going on behind the scenes. We've had a lot of great characters in this franchise over the course of these decades. So he's got to be at the top. All the actors that have portrayed him, some really great performances by them. He's got to be at the top. So guys, there we have it. We've got a lot of villains in the cream. We've got a couple at the very bottom level and sucks on so many levels. We've got a couple in game over. And then the Ooh Baby and needs a touch up levels, they have a lot there. And I'm thinking to myself, we could rank these, put them in a certain order, and that would be a lot of fun. I'll tell you guys what, if that's something that you want to do, or if you want to see me do it, let me know in the comment section down below. And then maybe what I can do is actually rank the characters in these different categories, which should be fun. And it actually would be very, very difficult looking at them. So I might be setting myself up for, you know, something pretty difficult. Anyways, guys, those are the villains. I think this was a lot of fun. You guys let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps us out. If you're not subscribed to the Night Watch Zone, this is the time to do it. Do it and become part of this fantastic movie community. And I'll catch you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.